Delivery drivers. What's the funniest way a Karen has reacted to a wrong delivery? Most wrong deliveries end with a quick apology and a swap. Mine ended with the HOA president turning her entire neighborhood into a suburban crime drama. Grace was in her 50s, always dressed like she was campaigning for office, and the day I dropped the wrong boxes on her porch, she convinced herself she was the victim of an elaborate conspiracy. The mix-up was simple. My scanner had two giant orders with nearly identical addresses: Sunset Manor Nursing Home at 1247 Maple Drive and Grace's house at 1274. Both came in bulky cardboard crates that looked identical on the truck. I grabbed the wrong set without thinking and rang her doorbell. Grace opened the door, smiled politely, then spotted the massive boxes stamped with adult diapers in bold letters. Her expression collapsed like a house of cards. First shock, then offense, then pure fury. She looked from me to the boxes and snapped, "What is this supposed to mean?" "It's your order," I said, holding out the tablet. She took a step back like the boxes were radioactive. "Do you think this is funny?" That was the exact moment Grace declared war. For years, she'd been policing Maple Drive with citations for mailbox heights, lawn lengths, and holiday lights. Everyone hated her. Now she was convinced her enemies had finally fought back with humiliation packages. She demanded to know which neighbor paid me, photographed my truck from every angle, and muttered about retaliation as I walked back down her driveway. I figured she'd realize it was a mistake. She didn't. By the end of the week, her house looked like Fort Knox. 3 new security cameras pointed at her driveway, floodlights on motion sensors, a no trespassing sign staked in her yard like she lived in Area 51. She started interrogating every mail carrier and grilling the UPS guy about suspicious deliveries. One neighbor told me she even hired a handwriting analyst to study signatures on delivery slips for clues. And then she escalated. Kyle, a buddy of mine who lives down the street, sent me photos from an emergency HOA meeting. Grace had built a PowerPoint titled Package-Based Harassment Campaigns, a Growing Threat. She had timeline charts, slide transitions, stock photos of shady silhouettes with captions like suspect behavior. In her garage, she'd set up an evidence board with blown-up photos of the diaper boxes pinned like mugshots, red string connecting suspects across the neighborhood. She'd even labeled the garage mission control. Meanwhile, Sunset Manor was still calling my company daily, asking where their missing diapers were. My supervisor barked at me to track them down. But how was I supposed to explain that I'd accidentally armed an HOA president with Exhibit A for her suburban Cold War? It all came to a head at her so-called town hall. 30 neighbors sat on folding chairs in her driveway while she pointed at her conspiracy board with a laser pointer, dramatically outlining her theory of bathroom-shaming terrorism. People weren't just watching, they were recording. Multiple phones were out, capturing every slide and every rant. Grace was mid-sentence about coordinated harassment campaigns when a man in a Sunset Manor polo shirt walked up holding paperwork. Calm as can be, he said, "Ma'am, I think you have our diapers." The silence was glorious. Grace froze, white as printer paper, while 30 neighbors collectively realized she'd spent 2 weeks and hundreds of dollars fighting a war against a wrong delivery. Kyle said her apology was the real show. Neighbors filmed as she ripped red string off her board, desperately tearing down photos while the nursing home workers loaded the boxes into their van. She tried to explain herself, stammering about false intelligence, but nobody bought it. She hasn't filed a single HOA complaint since. Grace isn't remembered on Maple Drive as the woman who enforced mailbox codes anymore. She's remembered as the woman who went to war with diapers.